Shalom, everyone. Today we'll talk about Ru'ach Ra'ah, bad or evil spirit. We don't really understand what this means, but we'll try to explain how it relates to getting up in the morning and how it relates to preparing ourselves for prayer. So, in addition to the reasons we have mentioned above mentioned, which are the reason that we are like a dead body during the night, or that we touch our covered parts without knowing because we are in a sleep situation. The Chachamim, the sages, state in the Talmud Shabbat 108b that one must be careful that his hands do not touch his mouth, nose, eyes, or ears before washing his hands in the morning, because there is a Ru'ach Ra'ah, evil spirit, which rests upon one's hands after sleep, and it is likely to damage those organs. In addition, in Sukkah, it says that even a nap during the day, if it's more than 60 breaths of a horse, which Rav Tzuriel told us was about half an hour, has the same exact idea, because it's not deep sleep, but it's considered sleep for enough time that you don't know what went on during that sleep. And so only after, back to the text, only after he washes his hands 3 times alternately will the Ru'ach Ra'ah disappear, and subsequently the danger caused by touching any of this bodily orifices will be eliminated. And before we continue, I'd just like to suggest that, especially during COVID, we found out that touching our nose or coughing and then touching somebody else's hand, etc., all of that passed germs and viruses, and we've known about viruses and germs for a very long time. Maybe that's what they meant by saying this Ru'ach Ra'ah, because especially if you did touch your covered parts, and in those days they didn't have cleanliness like we have today and hygiene. So that would also mean that, if I touch my eyes or if I touch my mouth after touching something not clean, that could cause illness. The essence of the morning washing is to prepare and sanctify oneself for praying shacharit and for the service of a new day. For that reason, the Chachamim instituted reciting Al Nitzilat Yadayim. Nevertheless, we are also careful about the Ru'ach Ra'ah, and in order to remove it, we must be strict in washing our hands 3 times alternately from a vessel. This means that we first wash the right hand, then the left, then again the right and left, and another time right and left, which comes out to be 3 times each hand alternately, and therefore removing the Maim Shniyim, which is the second waters that might have still have this Ru'ach Ra'ah or germs. Like I said, prior to washing, one must take care not to touch those organs that have openings towards the inside of the body, such as the mouth, nose, ears, and eyes, and this is actually in the Shulchan Aruch. Similarly, one must be cautious not to touch food or drink before washing, and I think that is self-explanatory. But we'll just talk about what the Kabbalah talks about, and then we'll skip to the next paragraph, which talks about Ru'ach Ra'ah today. The Kabbalah teaches in the Zohar that at night, when a person falls asleep and remains inanimate, without thought and action, he experiences a taste of death, and a spirit of impurity rests upon him. So, Echad Mishishim Mita, 1/60th of death. This is in line with Chazal's statement that sleep is 1/60th of death. The essence of human virtue lies in one's ability to think, feel, and engage in activities leading to the rectification of the world, tikkun olam. During sleep, when dormancy spreads throughout the body, a person loses, to a certain extent, the image of God, the Tzelem Elokim, within him, and the Ru'ach Ra'ah rests upon him. When he awakens from his sleep and his consciousness returns, the Ru'ach Ra'ah disappears, remaining solely on the extremities of his hands. That's the explanation of the Kabbalah. By washing one's hands 3 times alternately, the Ru'ach Ra'ah is removed completely. In order to completely nullify it, one must begin washing his right hand, which symbolizes the attribute of Chesed. Therefore, one should take the washing cup initially in his right hand and pass it over to his left, so that he pours the water over the right hand first, and then the left, continuing this way until he washes each hand 3 times. So we said a while ago that if there's no contradiction between Halacha and Kabbalah, we follow Kabbalah. But there are a few reservations, and that's why we're just going to explain about Ru'ach Ra'ah today. According to the Zohar and the Kabbalist, one must wash his hands next to his bed in the morning so as not to prolong the Ru'ach Ra'ah upon himself. They also warn not to walk more than 4 amot, about 6 feet, before washing one's hands in the morning. Therefore, one must prepare water before going to sleep and place it near his bed, so that immediately upon rising he can wash his hands. That's not my minhag. There are those who are lenient regarding this because, in their opinion, the entire house is considered 4 amot, just like you're allowed to walk around technically without a kippah in your house, and also women don't have to cover their hair in the house. All of these things play into this. As long as one does not have to leave the house more than a distance of 4 amot in order to wash his hands, he is not thought of as someone who prolongs the Ru'ach Ra'ah upon himself. And you have to remember that before there was indoor plumbing, they used to have a barrel outside, so just to make the barrel as close as possible to the house, or to do what the Shulchan Aruch suggested first, which was to actually take water into the house next to our bed with a little basin so we can wash. And the other thing is, some maintain that Ru'ach Ra'ah has been nullified from the world. The Tosafot in Yoma brings the opinion that this Ru'ach Ra'ah does not dwell in the regions comprising the Ashkenazi countries. The Lechem Mishnah writes that it is implied from the Rambam that he too is not concerned about the Ru'ach Ra'ah mentioned in the Talmud, but the Maimonides also changed a lot of the things of health that are in the Talmud, and so we don't always listen to him either. Also, the Maharshal, who lived approximately 400 years ago and who was one of the eminent poskim in Ashkenaz, writes that in our times no Ru'ach Ra'ah exists around us. So here is the explanation according to Rav Melamed, and I agree fully with this. I can give lots of other examples, but let's just try to understand his statement. In earlier generations, spiritual and mystical power was more pronounced and intense. This was expressed on the one hand by the ability to obtain greater and more transcendental experiences, emotionally and spiritually, such as prophecy, and on the other hand, the exact opposite by the presence of all sorts of sorcery and impure spirits. So Hashem does everything 50-50, or like I say, 100-100, meaning if something has the power of Kedusha, there is 100% the opposite, so that the person can choose freely between the two. So if there's a Mekubal who actually blesses people and his blessings come true, there will be somebody pretending to be a Mekubal, basically a sorcerer or a wizard, who will be causing damage and bringing evil spirits. And so, like I said, most of today, we are also, our senses are so dulled because our eyes and hearts are exposed to a lot more things than they used to be. So the spiritual battle is not as intense as it used to be. We see, especially for men, we have here we see naked pictures on advertisements. We see people walking around immodestly, and we feel as if it doesn't bother us anymore. But the rabbis know that our nefesh, that our spirit is affected, but maybe not as much as it, because all of our senses have been dulled as a result. And he explains, as time passed, intellectual strength took center stage at the expense of emotional powers, and together with the cessation of prophecy, the impure spirits weakened and disappeared. In their place, there are evil spirits of false and deceitful ideas. Furthermore, there is an amazing tradition regarding Graf Potocki, who was born in Poland to aristocratic parents, who had his heart set on joining the nation of Israel and converting to Judaism. Since such a thing was prohibited at the time, he converted secretly and engrossed himself in Torah. Eventually, the Christians captured him and offered him two options: to return to Christianity or to be burned alive. The righteous convert chose to die by fire, thereby publicly sanctifying God's name. At that time, the Vilna Gaon, who was in touch with this man, who we know as Avraham Ger Tzedek, Avraham the righteous convert, said that the Ru'ach Ra'ah lost some of its strength, particularly regarding the Ru'ach Ra'ah of Shacharit. For this reason, the students of the Vilna Gaon are lenient regarding walking 4 amot before washing. So I just want to conclude with a very short story. Just before he was burned by fire, the Vilna Gaon visited him in jail, and because he couldn't expose himself to anybody of being Jewish, he couldn't marry a Jewish girl, and he also obviously didn't have children from before. So the Vilna Gaon told him that what we say in Ezat Avotenu before Shmoneh Esrei in the morning, Ani Rishon v'Ani Acharon, is God is not only the spiritual father of this kind of convert, but also Acharon, which means I am also your spiritual descendants, which is only the Vilna Gaon could say such a thing powerful as that I supposedly have children that are spiritual with Hashem. So I don't think that he meant it literally. I just think that he was giving him encouragement that no matter what happens, he is going straight to Gan Eden, and we don't even have to say Kaddish for him because he is such a righteous and pure soul. And of course, visiting somebody in jail is always a good thing. So we'll end with that.